Alright, my friends, welcome back to Frogboy X1 Gaming. I'm Andrew, and today I want to do the review for the 7600 XT, the 16 gigabyte GPU that AMD just released. I bought the XFX QICK 309 model. It's got the 3 fans. I would have pulled it out and put like another card in there to do this review, but I'm actually still doing a bunch of testing on this. I've got about 3 days into it now. I got a Thursday, so I tested it Thursday. Did a bunch of testing yesterday. Been doing testing all freaking day today since like 5 o'clock this morning. It's like 1:34 now. I've played probably 30 freaking games on this thing already, testing them out, looking at them, seeing how they run, playing with settings, stuff like that. I've been testing, 1080p, 1440p, 4K even on some of these games with pretty decent results for the most part. So first of all, before I get into this review, I want to address some of the stuff out there about this card. A lot of people saying that you're never going to use the 16 gigabytes. That might be the case. I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you that within like the next couple of games or something, all of a sudden they're going to be, 1080p using 16 gigs of VRAM. I mean, that might not happen, anytime soon, but I do feel and I do see games starting to be able to use more VRAM. I've been playing games for so long now, for over 38 years, and I've seen, every time we get increases in memory or power or something like that, and developers have access to that, they actually start to use that stuff pretty frequently. And we are seeing with this new generation of consoles, the overall graphics power and what can be rendered on the screen increasing dramatically. I mean, we're getting significantly more fidelity than we've ever had in video games, and that will continue to grow, but until the bottom of the market actually has that type of processing power or video memory so that they can actually crank these visuals up, things are going to stay a little bit stagnant. But with Nvidia launching a 16 gigabyte entry level card, with AMD finally launching a 16 gigabyte entry level card, with the consoles, the PS5 and the Series X both having 16 gigs of RAM. Yes, I know that they are split pool RAM. I know that they use that RAM for the CPU as well as the graphics power. But when you look at it from a PC point of view, I mean, the PCs have always had more power, more video RAM, more all of that to be able to push past the console settings. And so when you're using 10, 12, up to 13 gigs of VRAM for what the console games are, that just means that the PC version, if the developers put the time and the effort into it, they can push those settings even further to give you more on screen. You also have things like ray tracing. You also have things like just using quality preset FSR at 4K adds another 448 megabytes to the rendering pipeline in terms of VRAM. If you want to go out of your way and add mods and other things to your games, those also require more VRAM. So every time I hear that argument that like 16 gigabytes is too much, I look back at all the games that I've tried to play that are already using more than 8 gigabytes. They're already using more than 8 gigabytes. And when you get into 1440p, you've seen games that have went as high as 12 gigabytes at 1440p. So the thought of this card not needing 16 gigabytes is kind of like ludicrous to me. When I hear that, I think about like, wow, what are these guys so afraid of? What are they trying to protect? Like, what is the main reasoning for them to be so against having 16 gigs of VRAM? To be completely honest with you, in my short couple of years of PC gaming, I would much rather have a card that has more VRAM than it needs than be starved of VRAM, period. And after playing around with this card for the last 3 days, I can honestly say to you that I hope we never see another 8 gigabyte card again. Period. Like next generation, those should be done. The minimum, the bare minimum should be 16 gigs going forward. It really should. I know that might sound crazy, but like, why not? Why not have your entry level with 16 gigs of RAM? I mean, you've still got people out there on older GPUs that, you know, once they upgrade and they do get a 16 gigabyte card, and then, you know, you start to see things changing and getting better. And I feel like the entry level price for this at $329, I don't necessarily think that's too much. A lot of people seem to think that's too much, and obviously with AMD's track record, these cards will be like $299 to $250 within a year or so, maybe a little bit less, maybe a little bit more. Obviously, the price is going to go down. Yes, I do not think it's unfair for AMD to try to put out this card at $330 when you have the direct competitor with a 16 gigabyte card that is $500. I do not feel like it is like it's unfair for AMD to be like, all right, here you go. I want to charge you guys $330 for this card. We'd like to make a little bit of money back on our investment for putting this together, for building this, and dedicating that extra, you know, VRAM to this card. I don't feel bad for them. I mean, I don't feel negative in my mind about them doing that. Will a card get a discount? We obviously know it will. When this card finally hits a price point that you feel comfortable picking that up, that's a different story. That's on you. Now I want to address the next thing that a lot of people have brought, and this is your feedback on the channel. Most of this is your feedback, and so I want to address this one. Next, we have the potential of a 6700 XT that is pretty much right now you can pick up for the same price. And then you also have a 6800 XT or 6800 that also has 16 gigs of RAM that is within $100 of the price that you would be paying for the 7600 XT right now. This is my thoughts on this. And these are my thoughts. Like, you guys can buy old tech if you want. Like, those cards are already 3 years old. You're more than welcome to go out there and buy old tech and do that. If that's going to fit your gaming needs and be better for you, that extra little bit of power that those cards are going to have, in terms of what the 7600 XT delivers, that's completely a decision that you're going to have to make on your own. And me personally, I don't buy old tech when there's new tech out. I won't do that. Like, I would never do that. I would never buy a last gen GPU over a new gen GPU just because it's got like 5 to 10 percent more power. That's just not where I'm gonna be ever on this channel. I will never go out of my way to buy old tech. It just doesn't make any sense to me, especially because of how fast the PC space moves. The whole point of new tech coming out is to get it at launch, and then, you know, if you're one of them people that buy this tech and you want to see it, you know, stretch its legs and see how far you can make it run and go and all of that stuff, that's cool. I don't ever recommend going out of your way to buy old tech, especially if you don't have, if you're not in a position to be able to change it out when you need to. I don't think, and I mean, if you're looking at a new GPU and you're considering old tech, that means that you probably are in a place that you can't really go out of your way to buy something else if it's like better or not. My advice to you, if you're looking at like the 7600 XT and you're contemplating like the 6700 XT, is that's a decision that you're going to have to make, and then it's going to have consequences that you're going to have to live with, you know, regardless. If you're buying a 6700 XT, the resale value on that is already going to be low. You're pretty much, I don't know, man. See, it doesn't make sense to me. I would never buy old tech. The ray tracing cores are better in the 7600 XT. You're gonna have you're gonna have more VRAM, obviously. Yeah, you got a smaller bit bus rate of 128, but you're also, if you're buying a 1080p card, I do kind of feel like You're gonna want those. You're gonna want those extra features that are gonna come with the newer generation card. It's gonna be more efficient. You know, just things like that that are going to obviously, with AMD, you have to look at it as like, yes, the drivers get better over time. You're going to be able to squeeze more power out of this 7600 XT over the long run. If you bought the card I bought, you're going to easily be able to overclock this card and get it up to a 6700 XT power easily, because you've got plenty of freaking room with the 190 watt, the increase in power. Plus, this card has two 8-pin connectors, so you will be able to feed it that extra power to overclock it. Now, I don't overclock. I'm not into that just yet. I'm fairly new to the PC space still, and going out of my way to learn that. Like I am. I'm actively, reading things and trying to learn things. But let's just face it, there's so much misinformation out there when it comes to the PC space that really finding anything that's like, look, man, this is legitimate. This is quality, quality information. It's really hard, and trust me, and trust and believe, guys. Like I'm not immune to falling into like a hype trap and stuff like that, and just going with the group think type thing. But I do try to find legitimate, official information for these types of things. I want to be able to do these things right, and I want to be able to learn it right, as opposed to just jumping on some bandwagon and parroting whatever everybody else says, and just accepting the PC knowledge. It's hard to do that, especially from my point of view. It's hard to do that because there's so much misinformation out there it skews the results, and poisons the well, to be completely honest with you. Now, I did, when I first got into PC, I fell into the whole Nvidia is the best thing, and I did, and I've come away after buying 5 separate Nvidia GPUs or products that run Nvidia things. The MX350 laptop, the 3050 Ti laptop, the 3060 Ti desktop, the 3080, and now the 4070. I've come away. I'm not impressed with the Nvidia experience like I am the AMD experience. So when I listen to everybody just bang on and bang on and bang on about like DLSS and ray tracing and all of this other stuff, I stop and ask myself, how important is that stuff really to me? And to be completely honest with you, I don't like the way that DLSS makes games look. I don't like it. I don't like that too perfect look to my video games. I mean, I know that a lot of people do like that, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that people like that, and if that's right for them, do it. Don't get something that you're not going to be happy with. If you like the quality of visuals that DLSS brings to your games, by all means, man, that is on you. Don't go out of your way to buy an AMD card if that's what you like. That's just pointless. That's like you're gonna trade that perfect quality image that you like, that makes your games look sharp and crisp and glassy and plasticky and just too good to be like, oh my gosh, I don't like that look. I like that softer, that more vibrant, that beautiful, like dense looking image. Like I love that, and AMD gives me that in spades. I couldn't give up the image quality that I get for AMD to go chasing perfect straight lines and all of that stuff. Like I don't mind a little bit of flicker. I don't mind a little bit of aliasing. I don't mind those things, because in my mind that gives the game character. When I'm looking at stuff and it draws my attention over into different places, I like that, because then I'm looking at more of the overall image quality. If I'm playing on DLSS and everything just looks perfect, like I'm not feeling like I'm getting that. I feel like I'm just getting a rubber stamped experience. Like I don't feel like there's any character left in the game once it looks too perfect. So I get that DLSS is the best at smoothing out edges and all of that stuff, and I do. I mean, if you like that kind of stuff, that's awesome. There are a few games that I do like that. Like RoboCop, the new RoboCop game looks incredible with DLSS on, and it does look softer and more blurry on the AMD cards, but still, it still looks good. And I'm still like, blown away. Everybody says, so everybody's calling out like the little sparkles on it when you use FSR. To me, in my mind, see, and this is the way my mind perceives it. Some people say, "Oh gosh, that's ugly," but in my mind, I'm seeing it like, "Whoa, man, look!" Like I'm seeing it like, "Oh my gosh, that's like a visual quality. It's a character, like a visual character quality that like, you know, shows like light, you know, like sparkling on the water or something like that. Where there's like, it's to me in my mind is perceiving it as a image quality thing that a lot of people, you know, they might be bugged with it. When you turn off FSR, it goes away. And I've looked at, you know, and I've played this game on the NVIDIA GPU as well, and I've looked at DLSS, I've looked at FSR, I've looked at XESS, I've looked at native image rendering, and to tell you the truth, I mean, I do like the way that that DLSS makes the guns and all of the metallic material and all of that stuff look. But then I also like the way the FSR looks as well on this game, as well as native resolution. Like it's one of those things that like I can play that game in any one of those forms and be satisfied with that overall experience. So now that I've gotten those two things out of the way, we've addressed the price, we've addressed the 16 gigs of VRAM. I want to go ahead and I want to give you my honest review for the 7600 XT with 16 gigabytes. That is $329. The model I bought is $349, and that is the XFX QICK. So I've tested multiple games now. 1080p, like I said, I've tested 1440p, and I've tested 4K. Now, this review is coming to you from a gamer that actually plays these games, and I've had to sit down and really think about like a metric system for how I would rate this card. The 7600 XT is rated as a 1080p card. So this was my testing methodology, and you'll be able to watch all my videos and see what and see, you know, like as I post all these videos, you'll be able to see how correct and stuff this rating is. So when I look at this as a 1080p card, anything that went above 60 FPS, anything that I could get above 60 FPS, and this was my metric. I want 1080p 60 FPS as a minimum baseline, and this includes FSR. It doesn't include FSR. It depends on the age of the game, stuff like that. I am going to rate this card at a 90% when it comes to the overall, like, look, this card was sold as a 1080p card. Right now, I'm rating this card as a 90%. And some of the newer games are what kind of drug that score down a little bit when you get into when you get into like Alan Wake 2, and some of these other games just being, you know, kind of heavy, you know, in needing, you know, having to use FSR, stuff like that, just to get above the 60 FPS. Forspoken is another one. It was unable, and that's like one of my benchmark games now. Like, can this GPU do what it's supposed to do at the thing? And these games do kind of take a little bit off. Right now, after 30 games, my score is 90%. After 30 games, my score is 90%. Like, this may change, and I will update that as things, you know, progress and as I continue to test games. But right now, we're at 90%, and that's because, you know, Forspoken, Alan Wake 2's brought this down. Gosh dang it, what else brought this down? There was a couple other ones, but then there's also some new games that are actually out there, like kicking the brakes off this thing, like Lords of the Fallen, over 60 frames per second, a UE5, no upscaling. Tekken 8, dude, I was getting 4K at 60 frames a second, but I had to use FSR for that. But 1080p, it like knocks the freaking brakes off that game. So when I look at this card as a 1080p card, I'm like, yeah, dude, this thing is 90% 1080p card so far. So far, 90% 1080p card, and we're not talking just 60. We're talking above 60. Like, we're going above 60 on a lot of these metrics, and we are getting into higher. And this is with ultra settings, the highest possible settings I could bring to this card to push that. And technically, I could push this card a little bit higher in the 1080p bracket because there's a lot of games that actually are, you know, but. You know, at 1440p and 4K and stuff, but we're gonna say 90% so far because there are games that do not meet that requirement that I've put out for this card. But if we look over at 1440p, 1440p, I'm going to give this a 60% at a 1440p card, because this one here is actually doing a significant amount of these games, mostly older ones, and you know, some of the newer ones and in between is doing at over above 60 frames per second at 1440p without having to use upscaling. And then pretty much 100%. Well, both cards are obviously 100% with upscaling. Both cards are 100% with upscaling at 1080p and 1440p. So most of the games that are bringing that down in terms of you know, the overall the overall frame rate and stuff like that, you know, there's some of those you know, the little bit heavier games. Obviously, you know, you got Alan Wake 2 and some of those other games. But then if we look at this card as a 4K card, this is where things get a little bit weird, because this card's about 30-40% with like without having to use quality upscaling. So far I've found like some of these older games being able to hit 4K 60 pretty easy, you know what I mean? And so that's kind of skewing the numbers a little bit for that. Like I said, I've got a lot more testing to do on this, but in terms of flipping on like FSR or any of that stuff to get above 60, we're only getting closer to 50% on that. There are some games that you're going to have to lower settings completely to get 4K. And this card, so in terms of that, this card is more along the lines, if you're wanting 4K, you're about 30 frames. You're about 30 frames the majority of the time on a lot of these games. And then but you're still getting a playable experience at 4K at 30 frames per second. So I don't necessarily think that it's not doable, but it is something that you will have to adjust your you're going to have to adjust your overall, you know, experience to like 30 frames per second. But so now you guys know that if you've been at this channel for a while, you know that I absolutely love virtual super resolution. I love it. And this is where it gets a little bit weird with the whole 4K thing, because now when I put it on 4K and then I use like ultra performance, because I'm, you know, on my 1440p monitor, I'm able to bump that back up to 60 on about 50 to 60% of games and be able to play at a 60 frames per second using virtual super resolution downscaled to 1440p with ultra performance and stuff like that. So my image quality still looks incredible on a 1440p monitor. And to be completely honest with you guys, if I didn't have a 1440p monitor to be testing this out, would my feelings still be the same for this card with a higher resolution screen like 4K? But obviously I could tell you that the middle part, you know, having a 1440p monitor does make this image quality pretty good. Even at 1080p, it still looks good on this monitor. Now, if I had a 1080p monitor, I would probably even be significantly happier with the overall experience for this GPU, because then everything would be 1-to-1 pixel and it would look incredible. I've heard this before on the channel, and I 100% agree that 1080p max settings on a 1080p screen looks better than 4K low settings any day of the week. Like, it just looks better, and that's for me. I personally like that softer looking image when it comes to you know, 1440p monitors. 1440p is the sweet spot for me. That's where I play all my consoles at. And that's where I do all my PC gaming, because I love the way it looks. I love that in between. It looks sharp enough, but it also looks dense enough to be able to like give me an overall image quality that I'm like, dang, this looks good. Now, if we break this down and we actually look at this and talk about this for a minute, when you go onto a 4K screen, I mean, yeah, it's kind of hard to tell the difference between the AMD visuals and the NVIDIA visuals. Like, it just is. The 4K, you're just pushing all those 4K pixels, so it really does start to look the same. And I feel like that's where a lot of the confusion comes when I'm saying the AMD visuals look better. AMD visuals, in my opinion, look better on a 1440p monitor than the NVIDIA visuals look on a 1440p monitor. When you get on a 4K screen, yes, it does get a lot harder to like tell any kind of a difference whatsoever. It is what it is. So Now I want to talk about the very last aspect of the 7600 XT, which is ray tracing. I still don't believe that any cards are really at a point where ray tracing is a viable option because they're not in an affordable they're not in an affordable for everybody gamer type bracket just yet. But I will tell you that I'm actually quite surprised with what this 7600 XT can do with games that are actually optimized for AMD to bring ray tracing, like Resident Evil 4, Spider-Man, some of these other games that actually have some ray tracing that's actually playable. This card's actually doing pretty good at that. We can get 60 frames per second. On Cyberpunk 2077, the benchmark game of the century for NVIDIA GPUs, I was able to get 40 frames a second at 1080p using FSR2 quality, 1080p 40 frames a second with ultra ray tracing on this card. And you will get a video of that, you will see. And then having AMD's fluid motion frames on top of that to really push that to give me what feels like an 80 FPS experience. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I thought this wasn't supposed to work on this card. That's very interesting that it actually does. Now, you can be a snob all you want, and you can be like, yeah, AMD ray tracing looks like whatever. You can do that all you want, but the truth of the matter is anybody that's in a position to have to buy a card like this is probably going to appreciate that. And you have to look at it that way. I don't think that other reviewers tend to look at it that way. All the smashing and bashing and all of that stuff that they do towards these lower end products. Let's just be honest here, man. I am not disappointed with my overall image quality playing on this GPU at all. Like, I'm not disappointed, not even a little bit. Everything that I see on this looks just as good as it does on my other 2 cards, on my other 3 cards. It looks just as good as it does on my Xbox Series X or my PlayStation 5. Actually, it looks better than what you can do on the consoles because you could push max settings. So when the PC community goes out of their way to bash these entry-level products and say that they're trash and they're not worth the money, I can already tell you right now that anybody that's in the position to have to buy this card, because that's the only option they got, or that's the only amount of money they've got, I think they'll be quite happy with the overall experience, because I'm quite happy with the overall experience. I mean, even with the 4070, I mean, when I was testing out Ghost Recon, man, I'm only like 10 or 20 frames away from the performance that I get on that game. You know, I'm about 30 frames away from the performance that I get on the 7800 XT. And mind you, both of these frame rates are playable. You know what I mean? Like, these frame rates are actually playable on this game when I'm at 4K. And that's at 4K. I'm at like 40 frames a second on the 7600 XT, and I'm about 60, 70 on the other cards. You know what I mean? So when I look at that and I take that into perspective, I'm like, gosh dang, dude, I get the exact same image quality on my 7600 XT, but I'm getting about 20, 30 frames less. And it's still at a playable frame rate. So when I know for a fact that the people that are in that position to where this is the card that they can afford to buy, I want them to know. This review is for you. I want you to know that I think you would be satisfied with this performance. I think that you would be satisfied with what you can do with this card and how you'll be able to stretch this card to fit your gaming needs. And I will be, testing some other types of games to show you, what it's like to be able to utilize and use this card. I've been putting out individual videos for every single game that I've been testing so that you guys can see for yourself the best you can on YouTube, like what, and I walk you through it, and I talk to you, and I give you my reasoning for certain settings and stuff. And maybe I might try to go out of my way to learn how to optimize, things a little bit better for this card to find some better settings. And I know I keep saying that, but Man, I don't know, dude. I've got enough power on these cards to just hit ultra and play over 60 frames per second. So I'm usually like, okay, it works. So I don't ever go out of my way to try to maximize frame rate or anything like that. I just am okay with above 60 frames per second, because I've never been in a position, and you have to look at it this way. I've never been in a position to where I couldn't afford to buy a card good enough to play what I wanted to play. My 3080 started not letting me play the way I wanted to play. I replaced it with something that did. So, but I do want to get better at this for you, so that I can review these products for you, so that I can help you actually find something that's going to be good for you. Now, in my opinion, if you look at the next gen stacks from both Nvidia and AMD, and if you're looking for a 1080p card, I do find that this one here is a dang good value. I don't know if I could recommend a 7600X or 7600, just because it's got the 8 gigs of VRAM. That card is absolutely, I mean, that one's already obsolete, period. This one here is actually what they should have probably just launched in the first place. So I will go at AMD for that. AMD, you should have probably just launched this card in the first place. Stop making 8 GB cards from now on. AMD, if you can put 16 gigs on this card and move it for $300 or whatever, why even waste your time? I get that making them budget cards are fun, and you don't really need more than that for like 12-year-olds to play Roblox and things like that. But we do kind of want to move video gaming forward. So yes, I definitely welcome 16 gigs of VRAM being the new base minimum for games. I don't like the 7700 XT. I don't think that's a good product. I mean, that's just me. The card's marketed as 1440p. I'm not going to buy that card to test it, just because I can already tell you I already have a 12 GB card that I'm like, I don't know about this card. It's not really that great. It really doesn't get to the point where it should be with the 12 gigs of VRAM. So I don't think I like the 7700 XT, but I do like this 7600 XT. 7800 XT is, in my opinion, the best bang for your buck. If you can get to that 499 price point, I absolutely recommend that card. I think that one will be very good for you. That one gives you a good balance of 4K, 1440p, and 1080p if you absolutely need it. So I do think that one there is probably the best bet, but this is the second best bet in the stack, at least for me. And at least for me, if you're going to be on a 1080p monitor, I think this one's great. You get all of the features for the AMD set. You get the AV1 encoding. You get the DisplayPort 2.1, and you get the HDMI 2.1, which actually lets you get on a 4K TV and push 4K 120 FPS. So yes, I do think this is an incredible card. Still has all of the other features that I love about it: the Adrenaline software, the way that you can get in there and adjust your quality colors. And to talk about that, I've heard some people over there on Twitter talking about they want Forza to fix it and make the colors more vibrant. All I got to do is get on there, slide the color bar over, and I've never had a color issue on Forza Motorsport. It's always looked incredible that way to me on my PC. So that's pretty much it for it, man. Like I said, as a 1080p card, this card's getting like a 90%. So in my opinion, that's a good buy. If you can get over that 60 frames per second hump using FSR easily. AMD's Fluid Motion Frames works on here. HyperRX works on here. Everything you need in the AMD stack works on this card, and it works well. Even with new games like Immortals of Avium, man, I'm pushing with AMD's FSR3 and Fluid Motion Frames at like ultra settings. I'm still at like 100 frames a second. So yes, you can utilize this card. This card will go a long way, I believe. And like I said, I've been testing old games as well as new games, and I do think that this card delivers a pretty dang good balance for what you're going to need at 1080p gaming. And believe it or not, 1440p gaming, actually pretty dang good at 1440p gaming. So, all right, my friends, if you like this content and you found this review informational or anything like that, please hit that like, please hit that subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.